I'm Jack Rogers, and today I'm going to show you how to make an Easter chick cake. This cake is perfect for any birthday party and is super cute, so let's get started. The first thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to bake 8 pounds of vanilla cake and dye it yellow. I dyed it yellow because the chick is yellow, and when you cut into it, I wanted it to be the same color. Once they are fully baked, you have to take them out of the oven and let them cool completely. If you don't let them cool completely, then they will crumble. After that, you're gonna level them off with a serrated knife. The cakes, when they bake, they have a hump. I'll put the recipe I use in the description box below. You're gonna need to take a serrated knife and cut those off so the cake will be more sturdy when you stack it. After you cut the humps off the cake, you're going to want to cut the caramelization off the side so you can see that nice bright color of yellow. And also cut off the caramelization on the bottom. Cover those in cling wrap and put them in the fridge. I use Swiss meringue buttercream. It's my own recipe, and if you want that, you can also click the link in the description box or just go to jackedupcakes.com. Once I prepared the Swiss meringue buttercream, I dyed about a quarter of it orange and the rest of it yellow. Once they were dyed, I took my cakes back out, took the cling wrap off, and layered them with orange buttercream. I just use a small offset spatula. It helps you smooth out the layers so they're completely flat. When you layer a cake, you spread buttercream ganache or whatever filling you're putting in the middle between each layer, and then you stack another layer. So you put the first cake layer, spread buttercream, next one, until you completely stack your cake layers. Once I layer the cake completely, I place it in the fridge. I usually would crumb coat it and then put it in the fridge, but because we're carving the cake, it's important to chill it because it's so much easier to carve when it's chilled. Once the cake was chilled, I took it back out and I used a serrated knife. You should be very careful with the serrated knives because a few weeks ago, I was cutting the cake hump off a cake and I slit a piece of my thumb off and it was just bleeding and bleeding. So be careful. You can always use a cake leveler for when it comes to leveling. That's just a thin wire. Anyways, back to carving. So when you're carving the cake, you want to just curve it down. I like to put the knife at an angle and then just move it. The initial shape you're looking for when you're carving this cake is an egg, but a little thicker at the bottom because you want to make it look like the chicken is just hatching right out of it. So you want it to be a little smaller. See, what I did was the complete opposite, and I carved it bigger at the top and smaller at the bottom, which is completely fine because all I did was just flip it over. But when you flip it over, you want to cut a bit of the top off, that will be the bottom, so then it's flat, because I didn't, and I flipped it over and this cake almost slid right off, and then you don't even have a cake. So make sure you level that off and then flip it. Once I flipped it, I carved the top, which used to be the bottom, a little more down because it was sitting on the cake board, it became a little more flat. So I just carved that down into more of a egg shape. And then I crumb coated it with the yellow buttercream. You want it to be completely chilled because the crumb coat locks the crumbs to the cake. So when you go back for a final ice, that there are no crumbs in it. It's not as important for this because it's a fondant cake and it's just going to be covered in fondant, but normally if you were just smoothing it, a crumb coat is very essential because if you do not crumb coat, then there's crumbs everywhere and it just doesn't look good. The cake was now chilled and I took it out of the fridge and gave it a final coating. Then I put it back in the fridge, and once that was completely chilled, I needed 4.5 pounds of yellow fondant. There's so many brands of fondant out there, and you just have to find which one works for you best. Rolled it out. And then I took the cake out and covered the cake. The only bad thing about it being curved at the bottom is you want to make sure you get the fondant stuck under there, because sometimes when you cover a cake with fondant that's like an egg shape, you tend to lose the bottom part of the curve. So make sure you smooth it out as quickly as possible so you don't get cracks or you don't get elephant skin. I then placed the fondant covered cake in the fridge and needed about 1.5 pounds of white fondant. And I then rolled that out, took the cake back out and flipped it again. There was an open patch on the bottom of the cake because it was not covered in fondant. I just took some of my leftover buttercream and spread it on that open patch. Buttercream helps fondant adhere to the cake. But where there was only fondant, I painted a bit of water because water adheres fondant to fondant. I covered that with the white fondant and then cut like a shark teeth sort of pattern to make it look like the eggshell was just broken out and the chick just hatched. Once I completely did that, I flipped the cake back over so it was right side up, and I peeled some of the shell back so it looks like it was just cracked. Now it is time to make the features of the cake, and the features consist of the eyes, the eyebrows, the hair, and the beak, and the arms. These take quite a bit, so you might want to do this before you make the cake because then they can dry. And fondant, when it sits at room temperature, dries out and is like hard like a rock. What I did for the eyes is I always draw my cakes before I make them, and so for this one I took a very close photo of the eye of the drawing, and then I blew it up on my phone and then printed it. If you want that template, click the link below. To create the eyes, you're going to need to roll out white fondant, black fondant, and light blue fondant. You're going to need to cut out each little piece of the eye. Once they're all cut out, you can take some water and glue each thing to the other. The reason why I used a template is because it's easier to make the two eyes alike if you have a template, because then you're cutting them each the same size. And when eyes are different shapes, it tends to look really weird on a cake because it looks like one's bigger and one's smaller, which is not what you want. So make sure you cut out the template. Remember, the link is in the description box. To create the nose, I just took some orange fondant, and I had a lot of trouble with the nose because when I research a cake, I have like tons and tons of photos of all different things that it could possibly be, and there were so many different noses, so I didn't really know, because some were like that, and then some, I don't know, they were all different. So I made a ton, and that took me probably the longest because they all were looking weird, and then I didn't know if I liked that, and then one was too big and then one was too small. But then I finally just made one, and I don't really know how to explain it, but just look at the video. While I was working with the orange fondant for the beak, I rolled it out and cut 2 eyebrows. For the wings, all you need to do is take some of your excess yellow fondant and cut it into like a U sort of shape, and then flat, and then cut 2 things so they have like feathers, I guess. That one, you don't really need a template. I just stacked them on top of each other. My favorite part, other than the eyes, will probably be the hair. And for the hair, you take some more of your leftover yellow fondant and roll like bulbs sort of, and then you stick them all together. You can use water, which I probably should have used, but I just didn't for some reason. I just stuck them all together. Once those were completely hardened, I took the cake back out and I used some water and I adhered all of the features to the cake. Thank you so much for watching this video. I enjoyed making this cake so much, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. And don't forget to follow me on all my social media, Jacked Up Cakes for everything. Especially follow me on my Instagram, I'm the most active on that. And if you want to see the time lapse for this cake, which is a short 1-minute video of the entire cake being created, make sure to click the links in the description box. I put everything down there. Last but not least, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. Thank you for watching.